Hey gang, welcome back to another video. So this week I'm working on another obscure Star Wars prop, but this one has a bit of a weird backstory. Now it's in the Star Wars Visual Dictionary and is considered canon, but it's never actually appeared in any of the films. So let's get into it. The prop in question is Boba Fett's sonic beam weapon, which was featured here in the Star Wars Visual Dictionary. It immediately caught my eye, but there's not a lot of information about it outside of this single photo. And since that's the case, I'm going to do a bit of modeling to take it from 2D to 3D, and while I'm at it, I'll tell you a bit of backstory about this obscure prop. As fans, we first learned of this Shin tool 15 years after the release of Return of the Jedi, in the April 1998 Star Wars Boba Fett magazine. The sonic beam was called out by name in a poster illustration titled Boba Fett's Armor, an Essential Guide to a Walking Weapon. Now this popped up again when the sonic beam was included in the 1998 book Star Wars: The Visual Dictionary, and finally in the 2006 first edition and 2014 re-release of Star Wars: The Complete Visual Dictionary books, which seems like a lot of coverage for a prop that wasn't actually in the movies. After some digital sleuthing, I stumbled across a post that essentially stated that after Dawn Post Studios had secured a licensing agreement from Lucasfilm to produce and sell a life-size Boba Fett statue, they took some creative liberties to make changes from original components, especially the props that were not fully seen in the films. This included the sonic beam weapon. And because the prop was later included in the Visual Dictionary books, that makes it canon, or more simply stated, an official part of the Star Wars universe. To further add to the lore of this prop, it was an included accessory in the Ruby's Supreme Edition Boba Fett Halloween costume, which was first available in 2010 and can still be found online today. Much to my surprise, and despite there being 250 of these in existence, they were released in 1996 and there are very few photos of the Shin accessories that exist outside of the image from the Star Wars Visual Dictionary. So my plan is to mirror my design so that it's identical on both sides. And assuming the final scale of the design allows, I hope to display this inside of vintage toy packaging like my other small props, so it's highly unlikely that anyone would ever see more than one side. So if I find out the design is different on the opposite side, it'll just be our little secret. While this model won't be completely accurate, it's not half bad for about an hour of designing, second-guessing what I'm seeing in the one photo that we have available, and eventually landing on good enough to print. So let's send it to the printer. After just about 6 hours, I finally had the prop in my hands. I think the scale is correct, or at least correct to the size of my hand, and all of the fine details look sharp, so that means it's time for primer. The sonic beam got a few passes of automotive primer until all of the micro-fine layer lines had disappeared, and then I left it to dry. When the primer had dried, I could still see a few small imperfections and layer lines, so I grabbed some 160 Grit Sandpaper for any of the major imperfections, as well as some 000 steel wool, which should give the primer layer a nice sheen without introducing any visible scuff marks. I also had a fresh razor blade on hand for any of the small support nibs that I didn't remove during post-processing. When it felt like I'd addressed all of the major issues, I dusted it off and could lay down a matte black base coat. I was afraid the silver metallic paint I had might be a bit too bright, so this dark base coat should help to tone it down a little so that it looks a bit more like the photo from the Visual Dictionary. I painted the first side, let it dry, and then flipped it over and repeated, and then left it for a few hours to cure since it was really overcast and humid outside. Next up for paint is the silver metallic. I'm testing a new silver spray paint, which went down really well on the first side. But with an impending storm getting closer, I decided to go in light passes on the opposite side, followed by a bit of warm air from my shop hairdryer between coats. This helped the solvents flash a bit faster and kept the layers of paint from trapping moisture between each pass, which would likely prevent the paint from completely drying, especially on a day like this one. A bit more off-camera dry time, and this layer was done and I could move on to accents. It's hard to tell what the actual color of the handle stripe is, but based on the photo in the Visual Dictionary, I'm going to say it's red. So I masked off the sonic beam with some Tamiya masking tape and a shop towel and got to painting. But not before I sprayed the unmasked area with some clear coat. The addition of clear coat is to give myself a bit of an insurance policy, since the clear coat creates a seal along the tape's edge and prevents the top color of paint from creeping underneath it, which results in nice crisp masking lines. As an added bonus, it doesn't take long for the clear coat to dry, and so I can move the project along quickly. This is one of my go-to colors for projects because of how good it looks under weathering. And since this prop looks like it's seen some action, my expectations are high that this was the right choice for the job. Now, even though I know there's masking and clear coat protecting the rest of the prop, the paint was applied in light passes until full coverage was reached. I'd rather creep up on it than go too heavy and risk ruining it this far in. After a bit more dry time under the hairdryer, it was finally time to remove the masking and see how I did. It's important during this step, especially considering the weather, to check my fingertips as I pull the tape off to make sure there isn't any wet paint on my fingers. Thankfully, that wasn't the case here, and I was able to remove all of the masking to expose the accent panel. Overall, it's how I hoped, although there were some spots on each side where the red managed to creep under the shop towel. Thankfully, I can hide it under weathering. The weathering on this prop will be a small break from the norm since I'll be using black acrylic paint rather than oil paint. I decided on acrylics since they dry much faster, which means much less hands-on time with this prop. And just in case any of the paint was still not completely dry, I didn't want to risk smudging the paint like what happened on the Jedi Comlink prop. The thinned out paint got applied all over with a brush and then dabbed away with a damp rag. I also kept a tiny spray bottle of water nearby to help activate any paint that may have dried faster than I wanted. The prop photo from the visual dictionary had a simple overall wash, so that's what I went with. Although I did try to add in a little extra here and there where I thought the dirt might accumulate. And when the weathering looked just about right, I used the hairdryer to help set the paint and address any areas where it might have had a bit more paint than I'd wanted, and then this obscure prop was finished. Now I hope you've enjoyed this bit of history behind Boba Fett's mysterious sonic beam weapon, because I enjoyed researching it and making it. And if you've liked these obscure Star Wars builds, let me know in the comments which one's been your favorite. Well, that's going to do it for this one. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. But most importantly, go make something.